that came out and helped on that. It was a lot of fun. I didn't get to participate the year before very much and stuff like that, so it was a lot of fun. So, and we got to break in that new old beater trailer that we had there, and it was pretty toasty. It was pretty toasty. Joe and Kelly and Wendy and a bunch of us were in that thing, and we were having to open the windows to let the heat out. We were baking in there, so it was a lot of fun and pretty comfortable. So anyway, that little heater, that 1965 propane heater, was kicking it out. It was kicking it out. Anyway, we appreciate everybody's coming out and helping on that. The next thing, be sure to put May 30th on your calendar for our 76ers annual barbecue. We do that up at Highland Glen Park, which is just that park that's below Lone Peak High School up in Highland. Lynn has got it secured for us again. We did it about a week earlier than we wanted to, because there was a wedding set up there the week we wanted. So we're hoping that the weather was pretty good last year, and then it snowed on us on field day. So, maybe we can just hope for the same scenario this year, and that's the week after Memorial Day. So put that on your calendar. All right. Anybody have any questions on any of that? Turn it over to Wendy. She's got down arrow. I got that. Okay. Space bar. Okay.
Good evening, kids.
Yes, Mom, teacher.
Hi, Wendy.
So we're going to be having a really exciting event called Hamfest, and it's going to be May 8th and 9th. That's a Friday and a Saturday. 9 to 5 generally is our time frame. It's going to be in the Sorensen Center at UVU. So there's some really nice classrooms. It is an ARRL state convention, and it's we've got speakers, vendors, activities, and awesomeness for all of you. So if you want to register online, you can go to UtahValleyHemFest.com. Keith in the orange shirt is taking registrations at the back tonight if you want to register here and now, so you don't forget about it. And we have a special club discount. For those members of the Utah Valley Amateur Radio Club, if you put in the club discount, HFE3ST, that is a club discount of $10. So you can get a club discount. And we're doing good. The registration is coming in, and we're at 90 days, kids. Don't panic. We got 90 days. So that covers your registration covers both days, and all the keynotes and fun stuff you can stay on. So, any questions? Yes.
How much is registration this year?
$25. That's your discount. You can get in for $15, or you can go with the family pass. That's 2 adults and as many kids as you can bring back in your car or are willing to handle, and that that club discount will also apply to the family pass, so you can get your whole family in for $30 for both days. And so, any other questions? Okay. That's it. And to Karen.
Okay, so service opportunities. It's been kind of slow and kind of cold, but they're coming, and they're coming fast. So we've got UCares. Again, if you're interested in joining UCares, there is, go to ucares.org, and there's an online application there. Some of the upcoming events. You've got Orem Summerfest on Saturday, June 13th, Squaw Peak, Saturday, June 13th, Arc City Days, Saturday, June 13th, Provo Freedom Festival, so 4th of July. So if you're into camping out, or not camping out, but having a good seat for the parade, come down and help us there. Katina Mosa, which is a marathon, Saturday, August 1st. Used to be Wonder Woman, it's now Warrior Woman. That's Saturday, September 12th.
So do you have to be a member of UCares to get those events?
You do not. We need every ham radio operator we can. For 4th of July, we usually need about 80, and we usually get about 30. So we have intersections that go uncovered not having help. And we also help with lost kids and things like that. So, no, we need all the help we can get.
Excellent training.
Yes. Sir?
What were the comments? I hear your response, but what was?
Noji asked, do you have to be a member of UCARES to work these events? The answer is no. And then Keith said that it's excellent training. So yes.
What kind of radio do you need?
Just your handheld. You know, we'll put out the information. We give you the frequencies to program into your radio. You just come on out. If you're new and you're a little hesitant to do it by yourself, just let us know and we'll pair you up with a seasoned ham radio operator so that you can be out there. Yes?
Where do you sign up?
These are coming out. We are looking for people to step up to the plate and help sign up. You see that we've got a lot of events, especially coming up in June. Most of those events that were listed on that board are events that I used to work. I have to choose one of them because I can't be in 4 different places.
Oh, come on.
So, we really need people to step up and help out, you know, plan these and put together, you know, ham radio operators. And there's those of us that have done it that'd be more than happy to help you, shadow you. Yes.
I think he was asking you, where do you sign up? Online?
As soon as we get as to who's doing it,
Yeah.
we'll give you that particular website of where to go to.
They can ask one.
Check into the UCARES net.
Yeah, if you go on to ucares.org, there'll be a sheet there that we pretty much keep updated. You can also go on to Utah SAG. We're working with Mickey at making sure that his website has the same events going on, and there should be a link that you can click onto that will take you to the sign up page.
Can
Yes.
you put those dates up one more time real quick?
You post those onto the page also.
Yes. Okay. So upcoming is CERT. We've got CERT's rolled out with a new training material. So if you haven't been, if you're CERT certified and you haven't gone through CERT in a while, you might want to come out. Again, if you've been through the class once, it's free to come out and take a refresher class. I don't have specific dates for CERT yet, but I know Orem Provo we're looking at toward the end of April.
Karen, Lehigh's starting April 16th.
Okay, Lehigh's starting April 16th. TURD, for those of you that don't know what TURD is the Timpanogos Emergency Response Team. They use ham radio operators. They put a team up on top of Timpanogos. They also used ham radio operators at Aspen Grove and Timpanuki campgrounds. So if you like ham radio, camping, and being out in the woods, this is a good event for you, or a good event for you. They do it every weekend from the end of Memorial Day to the first part of Labor Day, give or take some. If it's something that interests you, go on to the TURT website because there is paperwork that needs to be filled out, and some of it does take a little bit to get through the approval process.
Training too, right?
And it's TURT.org.
And there's some training too, right?
Yeah, there's trainings coming up, I think.
Usually in March and April.
Yeah.
An indoor and outdoor, and this year they're talking about doing an online training.
Yeah, they're still in the process of figuring that out. So some more events that are coming up. We've got the Utah Emergency Preparedness Expo on Monday, March 16th. This one is located in Cedar Hills. This is an emergency preparedness fair in Cedar Hills. Okay? Linden City Drill is coming up on Monday, September 14th. And then we have the Orem City Drill on Thursday, September 17th. And one last thing I want to add to this is we have the Utah Emergency Preparedness Fair that's in Sandy, and that's going to be on March 13th and 14th. That's an all-day Friday, all-day Saturday event. Utah County areas will be represented in this convention fair. It's CERT's there. There's a lot of booths, a lot of good information. So
What dates were those?
Friday the 13th and Saturday the 14th.
And that's at
This is Mountain America's Sandy
Sandy Expo Center,
Expo Center.
13th 13th and 14th.
of March.
March.
Any questions?
Is there one page we can go to kind of link to all the rest of this?
If you go to ucares.org,
Thank you.
this will have all the information. We keep that updated. We also put the links to the who's overseeing those races, and then also Utah SAG. Mickey has the same thing. Okay, if you guys come up with questions or come see me after the meeting. And next up is Lauren.
W. Pike. Hey, W. Pike.
Hello. All right, we have quite a few new hams this month that we want to congratulate. These are our new hams. Are any of these fine folks here tonight? Well, let's give them a hand. Yes, that's true. They're probably on Facebook and they're probably raising their hand at home. Okay. All right, and we have an upgrade. Roger Brown is here.
I know that guy.
There he is. All right. You got your general and extra, right? At the
Yeah, same day.
time, same day? Awesome. Great job.
Everybody should do it.
Cool. All right, so that's it for the new hams and upgrades. And it's now Motion's turn.
Easy.
All right, before I get going here, where's Mickey? Come on up here, sir. Mickey wants to say a couple words to you.
He can't
A
say.
couple hundred.
Just two?
You know, Jerry, I wasn't gonna go there.
Keep it short.
President,
Go ahead,
read a
Mickey.
little word or something?
As most of you know, Utah SAG, we maintain, among other things, we maintain a calendar of events for anything going on. Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, UtahSAG.org, we maintain a calendar, our calendar of events for things that are going on around the state, and our events list and our training and classes list. An example of some of the training coming up on February 20th, the Salt Lake Crossroads group will be doing an introduction to WinLink. On March 7th, we, Utah SAG, will be doing a effective net control and event support coordinator class. So as Karen was saying, we need more people. All of us need more people to help take on the events as they're coming up and coordinating the volunteer effort. Coming up in this month, the Digital Communication Conference in Sandy on the 15th, the Utah VHF Society Swap Fest in Farmington on the 22nd. In Tooele, they will be doing a technical expo on the 29th. March is just packed absolutely full with conferences and conventions. One that a lot of folks are interested in is the Operation Slick Rock, which goes from March 20th to March 29th down in Moab. It is a VOAD training and exercise. One of the key points for us is that they will actually have an instructor on site for doing the ICS 300 and ICS 400 training. So if you are interested in doing your ICS stuff, this is a place to go. We've got just a ton of stuff happening in March, ton of stuff happening and starting in May, just all kinds of events going on. So hit UtahSAG.org, go to the 3 sections, the training and classes for information on stuff that you might be interested in getting training on. The events or the things that are coming up in the near future, and the calendar has stuff on it all the way through till Skywarn in December. So if you want to do your extended planning, that's the place to go. I will be in back if anybody has any questions later. Plus I'll be at Lucy's.
Lucy?
Oh, he didn't, no, I'll let him handle that.
News flash. Earlier today, I got a phone call from Kelly's, because we were planning on going to Kelly's afterwards just to get together, okay? And they said, man, I'm glad you guys called because we let our chef go.
Oh.
And so we had to shut down at 5 o'clock tonight. And I'm going, oh, okay, well, glad we know now. And so we were just gonna go to the default place we usually go to. We're gonna go to Lucy's afterwards. That's why he mentioned that. So after the meeting, I'm gonna go to Lucy's. Anybody who wants to can join me. If you don't, I know that Jeremy's gonna take some of you guys and go to King Buffet, and that's cool too. Yeah, we got 2 places to go. Anyway, so that's why that is. Anyhow, let's see. So every month, what we like to do is highlight another amateur radio club in Utah. Because these guys are friends and brothers with us and sisters, and these guys are working alongside us in our events and so forth, except field day. And we get along really well. And I just want to highlight some of these people. Today, I want to invite Troy, here he is, Troy Buchanan, to come up and talk about his group, which is the Taylorsville Hamnet. Come on up, Troy.
Thanks, Mochi. My name's Troy Buchanan. I was born and raised in Taylorsville. And this is Rulin Swenson. He is the one who founded the Taylorsville Hamnet Club. I am the current chairman. But I'll let him tell you a little bit about how the club got started and a little bit about himself.
My name is Rulin Swenson. A lot of people just call me Rube. I can't remember the last part. About 14 years ago was when I got my ham radio license. I had a neighbor when I was a young man who was very active in ham radio, and I used to always go over there, and I thought, man, I got to do that, but I never took the time to learn the code. And so I never got into it until about 14 years ago, and I worked for the LES church, and I was the only one in my entire group that wasn't a ham radio operator, and that's a tough position to be into. And so I finally decided that I would try to get my license, and so I went to took the class, passed a technician license. But I decided at that point, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to use it, I'm going to do something. And I told my friends at work, I said, I see too many boats that never see water unless the sprinklers come on or it rains. And so I said, this is not going to be what I'm going to do. So to kind of fast forward, 2 or 3 of us in Taylorsville started talking together on radios, and I was absolutely certain the first time that the FCC was going to show up at my door and tell me I did something wrong. But we had a good time, and then I decided that I was going to go to Taylorsville City and see if they had any interest in developing ham radio within the city, and it was a resounding yes. And the Taylorsville Hamnet name actually came from the volunteer coordinator or manager at that time. Her name was Lisa Schwartz, and we called ourselves at the time the Taylorsville Amateur Radio Group, and she never could remember that, so she always just called us the Hamnet. And that's how we got that, and that's how we decided to go with that name. We've been running for 10 years, just a little over 10 years now, and to my knowledge, there's only been about 3 or 4 Monday nights that we have not had a net. That was another thing that I was very strong on, that if we were going to do this, we had to be consistent. And so a weekly net was an absolute must. We have had, we have approximately 35, 40 members in our city. Taylorsville City has about 21,000 people in it. So we're a small city compared to this. If we had this many people, that's half of Taylorsville. We just had, we've had a lot of success at times, and more recently we've struggled a little bit. But the good thing is that we've been consistent on our nets. And we have approximately this last week we had 37 people check into our net on Monday night. And about 6 of those are visitors from other cities and areas. And we welcome everyone who wants to check in. Right now we're meeting on the the 146.940 repeater on Farnsworth. We're looking at possibly trying some other repeaters here in the near future. It's an honor for us to be here and to see such support for ham radio. I've heard some good news about the Utah Valley group, and so we wanted to come down and get to know you, to see a little bit about what you do. And we welcome you also, if you happen to be up in Salt Lake on Monday evenings at 20-30 hours, 146.940 repeater. That's what our net is, and you're welcome to check in. And so thank you.
All right, I'm not gonna keep you guys in suspense any longer. Keith, the floor is yours, but before I do, I'm gonna mention just one last thing about Jaren. What was I supposed to say? Oh, yeah. So,
I have a list of all of those events that I had up on the thing, so if afterwards you want to come take a picture of this, it's my only copy, but you're welcome to take a picture of it. That was it.
mine is a terrible thing to waste. Thank you, Karen. All right, Keith?
That's why you have secretary.
That's right. Time is yours. Thank you.
We just switched over to the other. That's the one I want. Oh, except for I need to switch it into something else.
Computer music. It's up.
What? Oh, cool. Cool. Hi. I don't know how many of you know me. My name's Keith McQueen. I was first licensed in 1985, I think it was. That was a long time ago. And got involved with Utah County ARES and the SCAT team almost immediately after that. And then when this club started, I thought, that sounds fun. And got involved with this club, and my love for a lot of that time has been with building and deploying repeater equipment. And so that's kind of what I enjoy doing. It gives me, I really enjoy, like the guys on Star Trek, making things go. So, couple of quick acknowledgements. I don't know, it's kind of small. I don't know if you can read it, but there's some people that I need to acknowledge that whose things went into this presentation. You know, obviously this radio club, the SCAT team, ARES, Springville Flying Club, of which I'm a member, and why that came in, I'll show you later. Myself, of course, I'm a pilot and repeater geek, and then a lot of the aerial photographs that I'm going to include in this were taken by Jeff McGrath, a member of this club. I don't know if Jeff is here tonight.
Dentist chair.
He's in a dentist. Oh, that doesn't sound like fun at all. And then, of course, my wife helped a little bit with it, and she's a self-appointed radio atheist. She says she doesn't believe in radioism, but she supports me in my insanity. And then there's a couple pictures from UVARC and others some that I've just stolen for off the internet. So, why did I get into ham radio? I'm an engineer, software engineer by trade, but I don't know if you can read this. Gilbert's walking along with Liz, and he says, if I left engineering and became a manager, I'd be as sexy as I am now, Liz? She answers, I think it would decrease your sex appeal by 17%, but that's just a planning number. And then he says, what if I got my ham radio license to compensate for the loss? She holds out her arm. Look at my arm, goosebumps. So if you want to be sexy, first stay out of management, stay in engineering, and get a ham license. So there you go, super sexy. Okay, I have 3 parts to my presentation tonight. First, we're going to talk about repeaters and how they work. Next, we're going to do a tour of the repeater sites around this valley. And it'll be partly on the ground and partly in the air with aerial photos. And then at the end, we're going to do a repeater Q&A. Now, most of the really deep technical stuff with repeaters, I'm going to save for the Q&A. So just as we go through the repeater stuff, you guys who are less technical don't have to feel like you need to fall asleep or run away. Okay, I'm going to try to keep it interesting and not too terribly technical. So let's dive into that. I'm hoping at the end that you're like this little guy that says, I get it. Okay. So we all start out in ham radio, usually with a handheld. This was my first one back in the mid-'80s. Most of you, a lot of you probably started out with this little guy. I have several of them. They work and they cost a lot less than that first radio that I bought. But then we all ask ourselves almost immediately the same question, and that's this. How can I make my signal go farther? How can I make it do better? Okay? And there's some quick answers to that. We can say more power. We can say get a better antenna. We can say get a better location. Okay? And all of those can help to improve our signal. You know, we can put that handy-talkie on high power. Unless you're like in the same room with somebody, high power is where you need to have it. You can tell that I have a pet peeve about scratchy signals into the repeater. You know, back when handy-talkies had an actual high and low power button, we used to threaten to super glue that button in the high power mode for people. Or we can do all 3, like this ham. And, you know, that's great. I'll bet you he's having a blast. And as fun as that is, you know, trying to solve the problem that way is, shall we say, less than convenient. Especially this time of year, climbing up to mountaintops with that big antenna and a backpack with your high-powered radio and a battery and et cetera in there, just isn't fun. So, how do we take that high-powered radio and that big antenna, almost said another way of saying it, but it's a family group. And we can, how can we put that on the mountaintop permanently? And the answer, of course, is we don't. We put a repeater up there, and we access it remotely. And that gives us that, you know, that big antenna and that high-powered radio and the amazing location on top of a mountaintop, and we can use that anytime for the valley floor. Okay, but how do they work? Okay, that's what the rest of this section of my talk is about. Here's a key concept, a very key concept. The repeater receives and transmits at the same time, simultaneously. Okay, that's how it's able to do what it does. I mean, being on top of a mountain is a large part of that. But a repeater is able to receive and transmit simultaneously. It does it on different frequencies, because if you didn't, you'd be like this guy. It would be like this guy screaming and trying to listen at the same time, and that just wouldn't work. Okay? That's why when you program a repeater into your handy-talkie or your mobile, you have to put in an offset. That's the reason, because that repeater is a 2-frequency device. Okay? So, here's an example. This happens to be a UHF example. You can see that the, you know, Mr. Henry, the ham, is walking along with his handy-talkie, and he is the red signals. I don't know if you can you see that arrow? He's the one that comes up with red and comes down on the other red signal, okay? He's talking to his buddy, who is Carl in the car, and he transmits up on that same input frequency and down on the blue frequency. And that way they can talk to each other, because they're both listening to the output of the repeater, and they're both transmitting on the input to the repeater. Okay? Here's a block diagram. And I was talking with one of the hands here earlier. This is just one way of doing it. There are other ways. We'll talk about those in a moment. The repeater, if you can follow the green, you talk to the repeater on one frequency, it hits the antenna, comes down the feed line, following the green arrows. We hit this duplexer, and that's a magic box. This happens to be a 2-meter duplexer sitting right here. Looks like a set of scuba cans, but it's not. Scuba tanks, but it's not. It actually acts like a traffic cop. It says anything on this frequency goes that way, and anything that comes in on that frequency goes that way. Okay? It just, by frequency, it separates those signals out. Okay? So we come into the duplexer, anything on the receive frequency comes over here and down into the receiver, and then when the transmitter transmits, everything on the transmit frequency comes up, and instead of hitting the receiver, it goes out the antenna. So it's like an RF traffic cop. That's what it does. Later on, if you want to know more details about any of this stuff, we'll do that during the QA session. Because then, again, I don't want to see any eyes glazing over here. Okay. The other parts of this, obviously, we have the duplexer, we have the receiver, we have the transmitter, and then there's also a controller. That's usually a little computer that that makes the repeater such that it can operate legally on a mountaintop without me being there. Okay. You know from your ham studies and so on that every transmitter needs a control operator. Most repeaters we operate under a thing called automatic control. And if you're interested in that, hit Part 97 and search for automatic control, and you'll see, and then your eyes will glaze over, because there's a whole bunch of stuff you have to do to make a transmitter legal to operate remotely. Okay? Now, I said there are other ways to do this rather than having the duplexer here. And this is the way that, that the Utah Amateur Radio Club does their repeaters. They use 2 separate antennas, you know, so there's no duplexer. They have a receive antenna, they have a transmit antenna, okay? And yeah, that saves them a bunch of money, because these duplexers are not cheap. Good quality duplexers sell new for somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 bucks. Okay, they're kind of costly. So the trade-off is that in order to do that, you can't put the antennas right next to each other. You either need to separate them by at least 60 feet vertical. That means you have to have a really tall tower, or something exceeding 4,000 feet horizontal from each other. Or like UVARC's 6.2 repeater does, they separate them horizontally, but there's kind of a ridge line in between. Okay? So they get some I'm going to call it granite isolation, okay, between the two. So they don't have to have them quite so far apart. And then there's a cable running between those 2 sites, the receive site and the transmit site. Okay?
So you can only talk to the other side of the mountain.
Well, it's not that big of a ridge line, okay? I haven't been there, but that's what I've been told, okay? So this is the other way of doing it. Turns out the 7.6 repeater, of which we're all familiar, they use vertical separation. They have a tower that is something like 100 feet high, and we'll see a picture of it later. And they have 2 antennas, one above the other, directly above the other. And I think they put the receive antenna up high and the transmit antenna down low, to give that repeater the best chance of hearing as far as possible, because that's usually the difficult part. Okay? So that's as deep as I'm going to go into how repeaters work at this point. If you've got questions and want to dig deeper, that's during the Q&A session. We'll get into that if we have time. Okay? So now my next part of my presentation has to do with, we're going to hop in that airplane that I talked about that's owned by the Springville Flying Club. And This happened, I think it was like a couple of years ago, that Jeff and I hopped in that airplane, and I did my best to keep it from running into mountains, and he did his best to get some good pictures, and so we made a good team. So, let's go on a repeater tour, okay?
Thought we were gonna get a flight tonight.
My plane won't hold all of us. My plane has 4 seats.
I'm on the second row, so.
Not tonight. The weather's really not conducive to flying tonight, and even if we did, you wouldn't see much. So anyway, we're gonna start our tour at the north end of Lake Mountain. Everybody know where Lake Mountain is? That's the one on the west side of Utah Lake, directly across the wet lake above Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain and so on over there, okay? Right where this arrow is pointing, okay? And there's some repeaters that are near and dear to our hearts there. The Club 146.78, Club 224.56, and the Club 448.200 all sit on at that site. The UCARES 145.23 is in that site. And then very nearby is the 146.76 repeater. There may be, I want to say, a couple hundred feet apart from each other, okay? So let's visit the site. This is an aerial photo that Jeff took. You can see down here in the lower right corner, there are 3 buildings in this picture. The largest one is there, is owned by the state of Utah. That's where the 146.76 repeater lives, is in that site, at the Utah State site. Here's their tall tower.
We can't see the mouse.
You can't see this mouse? Okay, let me grab my, okay, sorry, I didn't realize that you couldn't see the mouse.
Thank you.
Let's see, you can't see the laser pointer.
There we
So,
go. What?
see? I can't see it. Okay. You point, I'll tell you where to point. So, the brown and tan site at the lower right corner, that building is the state site, and the big tower to the left of it is the other left. That big tower is where the 7.6 antennas live, and there are 2 of them, a receive and a transmit antenna.
One high, one low.
Okay. The building behind it is really terribly interesting. That's where the 94.9 FM radio transmitter is. If we go over here to the SCAT team UCARE site, we have a 50-foot tower, and it's about a 10 by 12 concrete building, and in there are all 3 of the UVARC club repeaters and the UCARES 145.23 repeater and some other miscellaneous equipment. Also has in there, some of you may be members of the Utah Mesh Group. They have some equipment in there as well. Site is, all of this land right here is BLM land, and we have a lease with the BLM for that building. Building was originally built years ago by the U.S. Forest Service and was given to the SCAT team. Basically, and a thank you for all of the many years of service that SCAT team and UCARES and TURT have given the Forest Service. They said, we like you, we're not using the site, have fun. And we said, yes please. Okay, let's move on. This next picture is taken, I was sitting right at the base of the SCAT team building there. That bright line straight up the kind of the left side, that's Redwood Road. The bright group across the other side is I-15 and State Street in the Salt Lake Valley. And then you can see Point of the Mountain off to the side, and Highland, and so on. Here's a little wider angle picture. This is looking on the left side. You can still see the I-15 corridor in Salt Lake Valley, and then you can see Lone Peak, Timpanogos, Provo Canyon, Cascade Peak, Provo Peak, and way off to the right side is Maple Mountain. So does that give you kind of the orientation? You can see why we like to put repeaters up on these high mountains, because what you can see, they can talk to, okay?
Oftentimes on Channel 4, you'll see this picture from the mesh, from the mesh camera, the camera the mesh.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a map where we have done a calculation of what that repeater should, what that site should cover, okay? And you see it's not as simple as a simple circle, because terrain, you know, radio hits mountains and it hits hills and so on, and you can see, yeah, the darkest area, yeah.
That's right.
Any of you that have driven to Salt Lake and noticed that there's a shadow for the 7.6 and the 7.8, it shows up right there.
Right there.
Yeah, another shadow over on the Harriman side. Okay, there's a shadow east of West Mountain down by Payson, you can see. Okay, but you can see it has pretty decent coverage around Utah Valley and pretty decent coverage around Eagle Mountain and up into Alpine and Highland. Okay, does that make sense?
How do you generate those maps?
There's software for generating them. One of the this particular one was done on a website that is unfortunately now defunct. But I think there's the software that will do it is Radio Mobile, I think will do it. And there's other software around.
It's just based on the training, it's not actual testing?
It's based on a RF model. Starts with the terrain, but it includes things like antenna gain, antenna height above ground, the type of ground, and so on.
Thank you.
Okay. So, let's see. Let's go on to the next site. Okay. So let's move south on Lake Mountain, and we'll spend less time on this site. This is where the 147.28 UCARES repeater lives. It's where the 449.975 UCARES repeater lives. It's where the 449.675 SCAT team repeater, and also in that same site is a repeater owned by Dave Williams, W87GIE, that runs the IRLP for the state races net. Okay, so that's the 449.475 repeater. Okay, this site looks like this. It is owned by Utah County. Utah County didn't want to play at the north end with all that millions of antennas and so on, so they went to the south end of the mountain and established their own site, so it would be a little more quiet radio-wise. The SCAT team and UCARES, we have our tower at the west end of the building, where it's pointed. Also in this site is, well, there's obviously a bunch of county equipment, and also it is a site for the 800 megahertz UCA. If you've got a police scanner that does trunking and you listen to the police, that's one of the sites you'll be listening to. Okay. Let's see. This is just a picture of a work party that we had up there. Again, you can see to the left end is the SCAT team UCARES tower. Right in front of it is my Forerunner and then some of the other guys. Here's the coverage map of this site. And you can see it's similar to the north end of Lake, but it's different. There's some things that are different. It covers better in Payson. Still has a bigger shadow by Draper, a bigger shadow by Harriman, okay. Has some better coverage over into Cedar Valley, and a little more coverage up some of the canyons, but not all of them. So, that's kind of the coverage for that site. So, moving on, we also have a site that we visit occasionally on West Mountain. Ironically, West Mountain's not the one that's west of the lake, it's the one that's south of the lake. Because, here's an aerial photo of that site, and a little different view. This is approaching the site at about 8,000 feet from the east. And then let's move, we're at that same about 8,000 feet, but we come around to the northwest side of the mountain. Okay? And a few sites of interest here. I don't know what all of the buildings are at this particular site, just because I don't. The UCARES 14734 repeater lives in the WA7FFM site, which is that little guy right there. It's big enough to hold our repeater and a 50-foot tower. Search and Rescue has a building nearby. The county has a building. UCA has some equipment, has another one of their sites inside of there on that corner. Okay? And one of my favorite things is to do panoramas from the top of radio sites. And one of my favorite times of day is sunset. I love sitting on the top of a mountain and watching the sunset. You'll see my Forerunner sitting there just above the sun, or just below the sun. I'm standing on the porch of that UCA site that we pointed out earlier. Okay. Here's another panorama. This isn't at the actual radio site. This is at another peak that's a little further north on the mountain, looking back towards the radio site. But you can see that from there, you can see most of the valley. Has a really good commanding view of the valley. Here's a view of the south end of the valley. This is looking out across Lakeshore Benjamin area towards Spanish Fork. And you can see Spanish Fork Canyon, you can see, so that's Springville Canyon that Carl was pointing out.
Creek Canyon, yeah.
That's Hollow Creek, that's Spanish Fork Canyon, okay? And here's a plot of the expected coverage from that mountain. You can see it has great coverage of Utah Valley, has great coverage of Cedar Valley, doesn't cover into Eagle Mountain quite as well. This is the reason that we as a repeater group decided to link the 145.23 repeater that's at the north end of Lake Mountain with the 147.34 that's on West Mountain. That way, if you're at the north end, you're in Eagle Mountain and you can't get into the 3.4 repeater, no worries. Get into the 145.23 and it's linked over to the 147.34. Vice versa, if you're in Payson and want to talk to the guys in Eagle Mountain, you can go back the other way. Okay?
How are they linked? What's the mechanism?
They're linked over a microwave backbone.
3.4 gigahertz.
It's a 3.4 gigahertz backbone. And here's one more site that most people are not aware of. This is where the 147.34 auxiliary repeater lives. And for those of you that are not familiar, we have two 147.34 repeaters covering the same, more or less, areas of the valley. And you can pick whichever one you want just by changing the tone that you encode on your radio. One uses 100 hertz tone, the other one uses, I think, the 141.8 hertz tone. And with one tone, you'll bring up the one repeater, with the other tone, you bring up the other repeater. This is our hot backup. So if the 147.34 repeater goes down, we can stay on 147.34 and just change the channel on our radio and we're back in business. Okay? There's also a UHF repeater in that site. Let me show you an aerial picture of that. Kind of hard to see. Right way up there. This is, those of you may recognize, this is 800 North headed into Provo Canyon.
So it's way up there. Is that by the Bonneville Shoreline Trail?
It's just up on the ridge line, just above University Avenue and 800 North.
University
So
Avenue.
it's at my home.
Where's in relationship to the shotgun?
The gun range is further to the east. Okay? So here's a shot from the site. If you look just right along our telephone pole tower there, right along the bottom there, that's Orem 800 North, just right next to that telephone pole. Okay? And then to the left of the telephone pole, you can see Lake Mountain, and to the right is Flat Top and on into the Oakers. Okay? This is what the coverage from that site looks like. And you can see that it has, for a low-level site, it has pretty decent coverage of Utah Valley. Yeah, there's some shadowing up into Alpine. There's some shadowing down into Springville, Mapleton area. No real significant coverage into Salt Lake Valley. But that wasn't our goal. Our goal was to try to cover Utah Valley, and I think we did a decent job of that. Okay? So, here's where we go into the QA. Those of you that want to be completely non-technical, soak up what you can, or if you've got questions, we'll cover easy questions, we'll cover hard questions. Noji, how much time do I have left? 5 minutes. So we've got 5 minutes for questions. Way in the back was the first hand.
So let's say one of these days I got a wild hair and I had some extra time and I wanted to go visit these sites. Is that possible?
It depends.
Okay.
Most of these sites have closed gates that you have to traverse. The Lake Mountain site and the West Mountain site, the gates are mostly open during the summer and closed during the winter. That's more to protect the road than anything else. We've had trouble with people going up in their 4x4 and digging. And that does bad things to the road. Roads are expensive to maintain. And so they put up gates to keep people from doing that during times when the road is vulnerable.
Can you explain briefly simplex and crossband repeater?
So I have, as one of my show and tell items, I have a little simplex repeater. It's not actually a repeater. It is a store and forward device. When it hears something, it records it. When that something stops, it keys up the radio and retransmits it. As such, it's not technically a repeater, cannot be operated under automatic control. And so if you want to use one, you have to be sitting next to it. Okay? And there has to be a control operator to operate it. Can't be operated under automatic control. Okay? Not legally anyway. Okay? What was the other? Crossband repeaters? Crossband repeaters is really not a repeater either. But instead of having, they still operate on two different frequencies, but the frequencies are on two different bands. Like for example, 2 meters and 70 centimeters, okay? And because the frequencies are so widely separated, you can get away without big duplexers and separated antennas and so on. In order to operate a crossband repeater, you need to, you can operate them under automatic control. For those that want to do it, I suggest you dive in. The ARRL on their website has a really good treatise on crossband, auxiliary links, and automatic control. You should go read and understand that before you operate a crossband repeater. Because most people who just stick their mobile radio in crossband mode are operating those illegally. Okay? Right here.
How about electricity to a place? I guess the owner of the repeaters has to pay the power bill on that, and you have backup power.
all of the sites that we talked about tonight all have commercial power. And at least the UCARES repeaters, and I know the club repeaters, we all have battery backup for those. That doesn't mean if the power goes out that they're gonna operate for a really long time. But our goal in SCAT team and areas on our repeaters is to have 72 hours with 100% duty cycle. Okay? That takes a lot of batteries. Most of our repeaters, we will have something on the order of 1,000 to 2,000 amp hours with batteries to operate those for those 72 hours.
How much power do they put out, the repeaters?
Most of our repeaters we set up to something in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 watts. We're relying mostly on a really high mountain with really good antennas.
Have you considered solar power for those?
We have operated at times under solar power. That comes with its own problems, obviously. If you've got commercial power, that's always the easiest way to do it. Solar power is a way to do it if you have a site with no commercial power. And then you need more batteries than you would need otherwise.
Yeah, can you just a little more on the controllers?
So the controller performs several functions. One, I mentioned that it makes the repeater operate under automatic control, which means it has to identify the transmitter every 10 minutes, just like you do when you're operating. It has a timeout timer that will shut off the repeater if it detects a malfunction or is interfered with for too long. It has often, not all controllers, but a lot of them will add the courtesy beep that you hear when you key up the repeater. Some controllers have ability to have more than one repeater. For example, our repeaters on the south end of Lake Mountain, we have 3 repeaters operating off of one controller. And we can link any of those 3 at any time. Our linking between the north end of Lake Mountain and West Mountain, the 147.34 and the 523 repeater, those take up one of the ports on the controller so that we can turn that link on and off by commanding the controller. And that's the other thing the controller does is it responds to commands to reconfigure the system and turn various functions on and off. You got one more question? One more question.
Awesome presentation, awesome slides. Are you going to post it anywhere we could look at it and write down the frequencies? I snapped a couple pictures, but I certainly didn't do them all.
I've put a copy on Noji's laptop, and you have permission. You have permission to publish those, except for I'd like you to go in and the slides that have the map of where the sites are. I'd like you to take the coordinates off of those. Okay.
We'll discuss it after.
Turns out that sometimes when you publish the location of repeater sites, you're inviting vandalism, and I'm trusting everybody here and everybody in the club to be adults and not let this information go out to people who might want to vandalize sites. So if you do go to some of these sites, look but don't touch.
There are cameras.
There are cameras that I'll be up here after the meeting to answer more questions and I've got show and tell stuff.
One more thing, Noj.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
If you're gonna go to Lake Mountain, don't go to the FAA site. Don't jump the fence. Okay?
We'll try to remember that.
No, I'm just saying.
The federal government,
You don't wanna do
they
that.
don't have a sense of humor about this stuff.
Yeah, they really don't.
All right, we won't jump the fence. In fact, we probably won't even go up there, so. All right, Carl. I did not arrange this ahead of time, so I'm kind of putting Carl on the spot. We only have a few minutes for this. Could I buy one of your antennas off of you tonight? Because I did not get another antenna to give away for a door prize, and we do want to give away one of Carl's antennas out of the goodness of the club's heart. So let's do this.
Yeah, that one's fondly named Pointer.
It has been tested in a variety of different uses.
All right, very good, very good. All right, let's see. First, we need to know who did not get a ticket. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, you got a ticket.
Don't cheat.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks to my great assistant, who's going to be delivering the tickets. As with our usual way of doing things, our MO, what we're going to do is we're going to take the first 2 tickets and hide them. Those 2 tickets will be the grand prize winners. One for our Parker's J pole, and yes, I'd be happy to help you put this antenna up in your house. But also,
that's worth more than the antenna.
oh, let me tell you, antenna's always worth more than a radio. But also, as you know, our one of our grand prizes tonight is a complete HF station right over there. I love the assistant is just now demonstrating what it looks like. It includes the power supply, tuner, and transceiver, and an accompanying cabling. So we're going to take now the first 2 tickets, but
what, no tower and
first,
tri-bander?
Pardon me?
No tower and tri-bander?
The next month, Keith, we'll do a tower and tri-bander.
I'm just razzing.
I thought he was giving away the computer.
First, I need to find where Andrew is. Andrew, where are you? Andrew, please come forward. Andrew is our picker of the month, you little picker. So, right here, Andrew, pick this number. Andrew's going to do now is first pick the 2 grand prize winners.
No.
Don't read it, just hand it to Noji.
So where that, what that was, oh, you don't have that?
There's 3 right here.
Okay, I'll just take one. Thank you. Andrew's gonna take 2 tickets at random, put in his envelope. Very good. These are the 2 grand prize tickets. So, that means that if you want anything else, if your number gets called, you didn't get this. Alright, so, and we're going to cut this short because we don't have a lot of time tonight. Still, we're going to try to go through as much as we can. These are our prizes.
Over here, I'm out of the box when you talk.
Okay. And the winner gets to choose which one of these prizes that person wants. And I come 706 logbook from Golden Days. 1 glove. Second winner gets another glove. We have this almost new battery. It's a 7 amp hour. It's a something amp hour battery. And we have a body antenna for an alpha and a pigtail. This is also going from a Balfang to an SO239. So there you go. Those are our prizes on this side. All right, so Andrew, please go ahead and pick the first winner. Say the last three digits really loudly.
601.
601. Do we see 601? No 601? All right, there we have a winner. Very good, very good. My good gentlemen, you get to choose one of those fine and fabulous prizes over there on that table. Don't touch the one on your left. The antenna. Thank you very much. Good, good, good. All right, very good, very good. Andrew, the next number, please.
610.
610. Sterling, come on up. You have a winner. You look so sad, Sterling. Yeah, there you go. Your choices.
Winner to a loser.
All right, thank you, Sterling. Next number, Andrew. What is our number?
611.
Wait, 611.
Stir 'em up. Stir 'em up. Stir 'em
Hey,
up.
we have a waiter waiting back there. Man in the black leather jacket, come on forward. Oh, what's it gonna be, Craig? The battery or the gloves?
Battery's
Or
gone.
the
Battery's
notebook? Pigtail.
Oh, show it
Here's
here.
the pigtail, there you go. Yep, look at you, Craig, that was me, you the pigtail. This is very good.
There we go.
I just noticed it.
All right, Andrew, our next number, please.
612.
608.
608.
We're stuck in the rock.
All right, we have, oh my gosh, all in the family here, Dad, Weston, who is Andrew's dad. All right, here we go, here we go. Either it's going to be the gloves or the logbook.
Great, hold it up here.
Very good. Okay, one more pre-grand prize winner. Here we go. Andrew, the number is
603.
603.
Really stuck in the
All
rock
right,
here.
the man in the back. Very good.
I'll take the gloves.
Go ahead and give that one to Karen, and now we'll get the envelope out.
Hold it right there. I need these. There you go.
Good job, thank you very much. And now, for the first grand prize of this lovely antenna, that actually can double as a guitar.
Or a presentation pointer. Or a pointer. Or a presentation pointer.
I like it as a guitar. All right, Andrew. I hold it in my hand. Go ahead and pick out a number. This is for the Parker's J-pole, and the number is
628.
628. Who's got 628 spots? Come on down. Wait, did she win this last month?
No.
It's like your third one this year, right?
Can I just turn this in to get it?
Sure. Next month. All right, Weston, here we go. The last and final number, the number that wins the entire HF station. And by the way, the thing works. Needs a little, easy handling. Just work with me afterwards. I can show you a little bit about how it works. Not tonight, maybe, but another day. So, Weston, what is that final winning number?
577.
Wow, 577. That's not me. Mickey wins the station. Come on down, Mickey. Oh, good away.
You're gonna have to get a
Well,
bigger house,
I
Mickey.
do have some bad news for you.
You're gonna have to get a bigger house.
Bad news is that you gotta carry all that stuff home. It's pretty heavy. Oh, it's not that bad.
And now you have $100 for having you picked it.
Yeah, go ahead and pick it up and see. You can take a picture.
Oh, hold on. We got pose again. There you go.
Thanks everybody for coming. We'll see you next month.
Congratulations.